Hey guys, it's Nick. After asking on Facebook and asking various people in class, I kind of gathered that a lot of people were specifically very confused on how to go about changing classes in JavaScript. So I thought I would spend the time to make a little bit of a video just to explain how to go about doing that. Now, I'm not an amazing videographer. It's not going to be the greatest production value. And quite frankly, it only took me maybe about 10 minutes to throw together this example. So I really do hope that it's useful. And if there's something that you want to see me do more of in the future, let me know. I'll be glad to. But basically, I'm going to just be opening up my terminal here. I use Hyper. All it is just a skin over the Git bash application that GitHub provides, or Git provides rather. And it just mimics the terminal or bash in Linux or Mac. You can use the command line, or you can even just simply create a file and open it up in your code editor. Perfectly fine. But without further ado, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to cd from my root directory to my desktop, and I'm just going to hit tab to auto-complete that there. The next thing we're going to do is, you can call this whatever you want. I'm going to call it index 3 because this is actually my third take. My first was just actually making it. My second is I recorded 18 minutes of this video on the wrong window. So, you know, third time's the charm. So we're just going to touch that. And then I'm going to, with my editor here, again, you can just drag and drop the file. You can see it's just right here on my desktop. But I'm going to open up in Visual Studio Code just by doing code index3.html. And that's just gonna open it on up here. Got all Bob Rossi there. So as far as anything weird, extensions aren't important. I am using Emmet because it's built into Visual Studio Code right out of the box. And I'm also just using this live server for live updates. But again, you can just open up the hard file path in Chrome as you've always been doing and just refresh it whenever you need the updates. But regardless, I'm just going to do exclamation point here. And that's just the Emmet abbreviation to open up a skeleton. I'm just going to get rid of all that other crap because it's not going to matter. And we're just going to call this switching CSS classes with JavaScript. But honestly, it's the title and it doesn't matter, and you can call it anything you want. And the next thing we're going to do is, just while we're in the head here, we're going to open up a set of style tags. Now, don't use inline styles. It's when you're not doing something like an example or just a small little snippet of code. You could totally use a link and include this as a CSS, as a style sheet file. But personally, I'm lazy, and I think it's nice in a video to be able to see all the code. But in the future, obviously with larger projects, and if you guys want me to do other videos, we can totally go about an actual folder structure. Then we're just also obviously going to open up scripts. So this is just going to be our JavaScript. So, like any good web application, I guess we're going to call this a web app, we are going to open up some markup. So first we're just going to have this div of items. And if you're still learning Emmet, all I did there was did pound items. Emmet always defaults to a div if you don't provide what you're trying to do. So I'm going to show you a really cool little trick just to auto-populate some dummy data, and we're actually going to use that dummy data as our targets to click. So we're going to do h1, and inside that h1 we're going to include some lorem ipsum. So we're going to do lorem 50. All this means is put a lorem, so which is just text. They're going to nest in the h1, and we're going to make 50 words. And then outside of the brackets here, we do the brackets so we can wrap those two things together. We're going to do times 3 and just open up 3 pieces of placeholder. So then if we open this up in our browser, obviously use whatever you want. I've been using Firefox Developer Edition. It's got a really nice set of developer tools, but you'll notice it's kind of just boring black and white text, which is a good sign because that's how we know things are working. So let's close that little message there. The next thing we're going to do is create the CSS classes, and then we're going to have 3 classes. We're going to obviously have an active class. That's how we're going to know what the active element is, and it's just going to have an opacity of 1. So that way, the main item will always be a solid color. The next we're going to have is going to be non-active. Spelled correctly. It's getting late over here. I already did a 18-minute video, but we're just gonna do opacity, and then we're gonna do that at like 0.4, so like almost halfway over, but enough that it's more translucent. And then the last thing we're gonna do is just add a transition effect. So we're just gonna do our items, all H1, so all H1s within items here, and we're gonna add a transition. And then we are going to transition opacity. Now, if you wanted to add more things like color, you just denounce that with a comma. And then we're going to pass the amount of time. Now, one mistake I made in the video before this is I forgot the little unit here. So it took me a second to figure out why it wasn't transitioning later, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So the next thing is we can actually get into the meat and potatoes and the I guess relatively exciting part of this video. So the first thing we're going to want to do though is access all of our headers. So we're just going to say const headers gets query selector all, and we're going to get all our H1s inside of items. Now, I've heard a lot of people talking about jQuery and the fact that you can get very unique selectors and do these CSS style selectors, but you'll notice here, exact same thing out of JavaScript. All jQuery is these days is a relic of a day where variables, DOM manipulation was a lot more difficult to do, but quite frankly, doing like const gets document dot query selector means the exact same thing. And then we can run like this. So don't use jQuery, but you can use these cool CSS selectors, which is really nice. And this is where things are going to get a little bit unique. So what we're going to do is we're going to say headers. Oh, and const is just a variable, so we can't reassign to it. It's like saying var or let or whatever. There's a lot more to it. You can't reassign it. It's better to use if you're not going to reassign a variable. But for all intents and purposes, it's just like saying var. And this is where things are going to get unique. So rather than doing your classic kind of for loop, right, like this, we are just going to loop over each individual item because, quite frankly, it seems a little more efficient. Now, what for each actually does is it runs something called a callback function. So that is a function that it will call on each element. And that element, it's going to provide the actual element. Now, as you can see here, there's a couple other things that'll pass into the callback. But more importantly, it's going to give us the current index element of this node list of H1s, which are like just the DOM elements there. And then we're going to run a function on each one of them. So what is that we're going to do? Well, we're going to want to actually be able to handle our clicks. So we're going to do add event listener. Sorry for the squeaking. I'm at a dining room leather chair and it's noisy and uncomfortable. So we're just going to check for our click event. And then again, we're going to be doing one of those callback functions. Now, what gets passed back to the callback of the event listener? Well, an event object, of course. And you've probably seen this before, declaring a function with an event, but it does actually get passed back in the callback. All passing a function into the event listener function, all you're doing is passing a callback anyways, or a reference to a callback. And this is where things are going to get really weird. So the first thing we're going to want to do, I missed a really important part up here. So we need to actually put the classes on the elements. So we're just going to say class gets non-active on these guys. And I just did that by holding Alt and clicking the two spots. But again, manual typing is always a good thing. And then we're just going to go into active. So now what we're going to do, and you can see now we have that opaque difference. So first what we're going to do is find any active element. So we're clicking something, right? So on each click, we're going to want to go and find every active element and make it no longer active, because we're going to make a new active element. And the way that we're going to do that is we're just going to do const active elements. And if I make any horrible typos, just forgive me. I am so lazy. As long as the code works, the variable names aren't particularly important. And we're just going to go query selector all active elements. We're going to grab any element with the active tag currently, which is specifically this guy right up here. And then we're going to loop over each one. But we're going to do it in a really unique way here. We are going to say active elements, and we're going to do what's called a Boolean expression. So a Boolean expression is, I like to think of it as asking a question. So we're asking, is there any active elements? And we know that we're going to get one. So basically it's this, it's called an expression. So a idea that can evaluate to true, or the thing you want to look into if you want to get a little more advanced is truthy and falsy evaluations. But we're going to ask expression exactly like you would an if statement. And if true, do this. If true, false, do that. And it makes it really easy to assign it to like some kind of variable, right? Because you could do like my var gets expression, and then actually here's a good one. Why don't we could check if someone can drink. So we could do age less than 19. I'm in Canada, as I think most people will be, but we'll do can drink because that's the true part. And then we'll say, and I said drive. Jesus, what is my mind on? And then we'll do can not drink. So just checking if they can drink, and then we're either applying this string to my var or that string. We're just doing this to make sure there's an element, so we're not going to start manipulating things. And we're going to do an element. Oh fuck! We're going to do a active elements dot for each. So for each element that is active, and then for our false part, we're just going to return the value null, which is just the literal evaluation of nothing. Where 0 is like the value of nothing. This is like literally just nothing. Just ignore me. We're going to pass that callback again, taking in our element, and we're going to open up some tags. So the first thing we're going to want to do here is actually remove the active tag. So we're going to be able to do element.classList. So we're just going to access any of the classes this element has, and we're going to remove one. And we're just going to remove the active class, and then we're going to add the non-active class. So we'll do classList dot add non-active. So you'll notice it loses it now. Hold on. You'll notice it actually loses the active tag, which is awesome. But now we want to set the element we just clicked up here and passed in as the event to active. So we're going to do it in a way you've probably seen before, where we're going to say event.target, because the click event actually has an element, and that reference point is called target. And again, just like we did right above here, is we're going to access its class list, and we're going to say remove dash non-active. And then we're going to do the same thing, drilling into dash class list dot add, and this time we're going to add active. And there you go. Simple as that. Another cool little thing, although I don't know if you really want to do it, is you can do other things with these active, non-active classes, right? Like you could say non-active elements are blue, and then say, well, I want to animate. I'll say they're kind of this weird opaque, like clear blue now. And let's say we want to also animate color when it changes. You'll notice it like becomes this weird, like just horribly janky transition. But yeah, that's all you guys got to know. If there's any questions or you want me to do more videos like this, leave a comment down on the bottom there, or message me over Facebook, or ask me in class even. I'm proficient in a couple different JavaScript frameworks, specifically React and Vue. If maybe you want me to try to do a video in one of those, but I think and I also like backend stuff like Node.js and PHP and MySQL. But I think more importantly is if the questions are, or kind of like this, where it's how do I do X specifically, I really like those because you keep the videos a little bit shorter without having to do long, drawn out, hour-long videos and parts and whatnot. And obviously I struggle enough doing what is this now, 16-minute video. But anyways, have yourselves a great one. Really look into kind of being able to do this stuff where we're drilling into these node elements and accessing like their class lists, because there's all sorts of really great stuff. There's a YouTube I post on the Facebook page called Traversy Media. He has an amazing DOM video. I really recommend you check out that content. But until next time, have yourselves a great one, guys.